I never thought that the case of the missing tourist would become a cold monument. Climber Robert Greene disappeared in Red Canyon, leaving only an alarming message. He had found something that did not correspond to the ecological status of the park. I never thought that a case that began with an ordinary missing person report would lead me to the walls of Red Canyon, where death hung in the air like a bird of prey. Many years have passed, but I still remember the feeling of the dry, hot wind on my face when I first set out on that route. My name is John McClain. I'm a detective with the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, LVMPD, Homicide Division, and most of my work involves dirty business in concrete. But this story is different. It's about how the wilds of Nevada can hide crimes that seem like myth. In June 2016, a 25-year-old freelance climber named Robert Greene disappeared in Red Rock Canyon. Robert was from Denver and came here with one goal in mind: to establish a new extreme route deep in First Creek Canyon. He registered his 4-day plan at the Red Rock Canyon Visitor Center, detailing everything: belay points, return time, and his sister Annie's contact information. Everything was perfect except for one thing: he didn't return. The search began quickly and was extensive, but fruitless. Helicopters, dozens of volunteers, dog handlers. The canyon swallowed him without a trace. We found his blue Ford Ranger pickup truck in the parking lot, but there was no evidence that anything had gone wrong. The doors were locked, his backpack with supplies was inside. His last communication was a voice message to his sister, which she later played back to me. There was only static and a single clear phrase, spoken in a tense, low voice. "I've found something strange that doesn't fit with the ecological status of the park. I have to film it. I may not be in touch tonight." We searched for 2 years. 2 years of silence that ate away at his family's souls. The case went cold and sat as a thick folder on my shelf, where it seemed destined to die. But in June 2018, the canyon decided to speak to us again. The Local Access Project, a group that marks rare routes, discovered the remains of Robert Greene. The find was on a high, rarely visited cliff in the First Creek Canyon area, which cannot be climbed without special equipment. When I arrived at the site, I felt my insides tighten. The body, or rather what was left of it after 2 years under the Nevada sun and predatory birds, was fixed to the rock. It was fixed in a vertical position that mimicked crucifixion. This was not an accidental death. It was an act. The forensic examination conducted by my colleague, Dr. Lee, confirmed the worst. Death was caused by blunt force trauma to the head inflicted while the victim was still alive. The body was then professionally hoisted and secured at a height of about 60 meters. "It took time," Lee told me, carefully removing the remains of the ropes from high-end carabiners. "And really high-end climbing equipment, John. No one who is just hiding would leave a body in such a visible but inaccessible place." This is a message from someone who didn't want Robert found, but wanted everyone to know he was here. I could feel sweat running down my back. Inside the canyon, where a dry, hot wind blew, the cold, methodical hand of crime reigned. I looked at the cliff, at those eerie carabiners, and realized that this case had just turned into a race against someone whose cruelty was as high as the wall on which he had hoisted his victim. And I had to find out what Robert Greene had photographed 2 years ago. The Nevada sun, which was scorching even in June, seemed to refuse to illuminate this wall. We recovered Robert Greene's body on the 3rd day using a helicopter and a team of experienced technical climbers. Every detail screamed methodical. The carabiners were tightened with the correct force, the knots on the ropes were professional, and the high-end climbing equipment was attached so that it would hold on the rock for years without slipping. This was not an act of chaotic madness. It was a demonstrative, cold execution. I returned to the LVMPD station and immersed myself in the initial reports. We needed to find the key that would explain why the body had been lifted and professionally secured at a height of 60 meters. Such an act required considerable effort and high-quality climbing equipment. The person who did this knew not only how to kill, but also how to work at height. The first unusual fact was the forensic report on microtraces. Under Robert's fingernails and on his clothes, especially on the back of his pants, we found traces of rare minerals. None of them were found in this part of the canyon. They were similar to talc, but with a high content of sulfides, mining products characteristic of old abandoned mines. "The crime scene is not where we found it," I said, looking at the map. "The body was moved. He was killed somewhere else and then brought to the cliff as a message." This confirmed the theory that Robert had indeed found something, as he had told his sister. He was an experienced climber, not a treasure hunter, and he was only interested in rock formations. But perhaps while searching for a new route, he stumbled upon a place that someone had carefully hidden. The next step was to return to the place where his backpack was found. In 2 years, it had been partially covered by rocks, but the main thing we found inside was his professional camera. It was damaged, the body was cracked, but the memory card he used to take detailed pictures of rock formations was still there. It was locked, just like his phone in the pickup truck. It was no coincidence. Someone had deliberately tried to erase all digital traces. While our techies were working on recovering data from the memory card, I started digging deeper into the park's documentation. And then another strange thing came to light. The investigation revealed that someone had been regularly making changes to the rock climbing permit archive. 2 weeks after Robert's disappearance, a park ranger explained to me, some strange technical records appeared. Some of Robert's new routes were marked as technically closed. The marks were made from a computer that had access to the internal network, but the IP address itself was hidden through a proxy server. It was confusing. Why would someone who killed a person and secured their body to a rock then so carefully hide the routes they had taken? Only if those routes led somewhere no one was supposed to go, and the killer was simply trying to cover his tracks after the crime. He used professional information about the routes to create a digital barrier. I looked at 2 conflicting clues. Minerals pointed to a closed industrial area or an abandoned mine. Digital trail pointed to a person who had internal access to the park's databases or possessed expert-level technical knowledge. I could feel the picture coming together. Robert Greene didn't just get lost. As he said, he found something he wasn't supposed to see. And the person who killed him wasn't a random maniac. It was someone within the system who knew how to use both ropes on a cliff and computer codes. And that person tried to wipe Robert off the map twice, once physically and once in the electronic archive. I ordered the analytics department to check all old mining sites within a 50-mile radius of the discovery site, especially those that were abandoned or had a questionable history. My expectations were justified. Lovell Canyon Quarry, an old mine known for its illegal activities and unstable ground, became the focus of our attention. It was the perfect place to hide something that didn't fit with the park's environmental status. I could smell dry earth mixed with the scent of danger. We were on the right track. Lovell Canyon Quarry is an old, abandoned mining site located about 30 miles from Red Rock. It was closed in the 1990s due to declining profitability, but is known for its illegal activities, from hidden warehouses to questionable disposal operations. I knew that the microtraces of rare minerals with high sulfide content found on Robert's clothes, identical to mining waste, led here. Detective Ramirez and I drove there in an unmarked Chevrolet Tahoe. The area looked dead, broken concrete structures, rusty pieces of equipment, and a deep, open quarry with walls cut by old tunnels. It was the perfect place to hide a crime that must never see the light of day. Meanwhile, our techies finally recovered the data from Robert's damaged memory card. He had used a professional camera to take detailed pictures of the rock formations, and we expected to see only landscapes and trial routes. But the last series of photos, taken on the morning of his disappearance, shocked us. These weren't just photos of rocks. They were Clear photos of a communications tower, an old unregistered one, hidden between the canyon and Level Canyon. It was clearly not for tourists and did not belong to any of Nevada's official providers. It was needed to coordinate some kind of covert operation. Photos of large industrial ventilation pipes, camouflaged in the canyon slope and leading deep into Level Canyon Quarry. Robert photographed them with technical precision, emphasizing the details of the camouflage. It became clear that Robert Greene, while photographing his route, had inadvertently captured signs of hidden illegal activity. He had witnessed what Stone, or someone else, was hiding deep in the bowels of Nevada. His last sentence, "I found something strange that doesn't fit with the ecological status of the park," received eerie confirmation. He had stumbled upon illegal toxic waste disposal or a hidden manufacturing operation that required constant coordination, the tower, and ventilation, the pipes, and someone was paying big money for it. While we were digesting this information, I received a call from our cybercrime analyst. He drew my attention to suspicious transactions for the maintenance of the communications tower we had seen in the photo. These transactions did not go through large telecommunications companies, but went through a chain of small freelance contractors who specialized in high-altitude work. "We traced the final payment," the analyst said, "and it led to a local industrial climber named Jacob Thompson." Everything fit together. High-end climbing equipment, professional knots on the rock, an intimidating installation at a height of 60 meters, and now an industrial climber as the likely performer of the technical work. We found Thompson's address. He lived in a trailer on the outskirts of town, not far from East Highway. Ramirez and I arrived without a warrant, just for a preliminary conversation. Thompson, a sturdy man in his 40s with a weather-beaten face and calloused hands, was nervous. When we asked him about his work in Level Canyon, he flinched slightly, but his response was cold and professional. "I was doing technical work. It's none of your business. Height, antennas, nothing illegal." "What about disposal?" I asked, showing him a photo of the communications tower. His face paled. "Disposal is just cleaning up old wires." We conducted a brief but thorough search of his garage. Among the professional equipment, dozens of ropes and carabiners, we found what we were looking for: several spools of rope identical to those used to secure Robert Greene's body. They were a rare model used for heavy industrial lifting, not sport climbing. When I showed him a fragment of this rope, Thompson gave up. His shoulders slumped. "I didn't kill him. I swear, Detective. I was just doing technical disposal work," he whispered, his voice sounding like dry sand trickling down. "What kind of work, Jacob?" "I was hired to secure the body. The boss wanted to send a very clear message of non-interference, so that all the other climbers who risk climbing where they shouldn't understand, this is no place for curiosity." He confirmed that Robert's body was already dead at that time. They fixed him to the rock as a warning. I felt a cold sweat run down my back. This wasn't just a killer. This was a crime engineer who turned a human death into a monument of intimidation. But he didn't do the killing, he said. Now I needed the name of the boss. I sat across from Jacob Thompson in the interrogation room, and the air was thick and heavy, like dust kicked up in a canyon. I didn't let him drink, even though he asked for the third time. I wanted him to feel as thirsty as I was for the truth. "Did you know Robert Greene?" I asked, leaning forward. "No, I never saw him until—" I saw him again. Thompson swallowed the dryness in his throat. "I'm an industrial climber, Detective. I'm not a sport climber. I don't hang out at Red Rock. I work on towers, bridges, big structures." "But you worked on the tower near Level Canyon that Robert photographed." I threw the printed photos on the table, the tower, the ventilation pipes. "And you used your professional skills to secure a dead body at height. That's not just a job. That's complicity in murder." "I told you I was doing technical disposal work." He slammed his fist on the table, but immediately fell silent, realizing his mistake. He was already gone, you understand? They told me he fell, that it was an accident, and they just wanted to hide him on a hard-to-reach cliff to avoid a big scandal with waste disposal. And then I saw how they secured him. In that position. This was the first key shocking fact that refuted the initial version. Thompson was not the killer, but the technical executor. This led us away from the false climax to the real boss. So who is this boss? My voice was low, like the rumble of distant thunder. Thompson was silent for a few minutes, looking at his calloused hands. If I tell you, will you guarantee me protection? I guarantee it, but if you remain silent, you'll go to prison for covering up a murder, and you'll rot there while your boss enjoys the money, I pressed him, using his own fear. Thompson broke down. He named the person we already suspected when we checked the history of Level Canyon Quarry, Arthur Stone. He owned the quarry until it closed. He went bankrupt, but he never left the tunnels, Thompson explained, his gaze wandering over the wall. Stone. He used the old tunnels for illegal disposal of toxic waste. Big money. He had contracts with companies all over the state, and the tower, he needed it to coordinate truck traffic and monitor the area. Robert, that climber. He was an unfortunate witness. He photographed the ventilation pipes and the tower, which proved that something is operating there, and he started going down into the tunnels. There it is, I thought, the truth that Robert Greene couldn't convey. Thompson explained that he saw Stone, in a rage. Stone was known for his temper, lunge at Robert in the old tunnel when he got too close to the ventilation pipe. After the murder, Stone, who had once been an excellent rescue climber himself, planned a theatrical disposal. He wanted it to look like an ancient ritual, like a warning. Thompson clenched his fists. Stone said, "The message has to be very clear. Don't interfere." "A clear message," I repeated. "Crucifixion. It's not just disposal, Jacob. It's a display of power." Thompson, feeling some relief from his confession, continued. "Stone has a surveillance room in the quarry, a hidden room he used as his office. He left all his plans for hiding evidence there in case he was exposed. He planned everything like a game." "Coordinates, Jacob. Give me the coordinates of that room." He sighed, wiping his sweaty forehead. "It's on the east wall of the quarry, under an old bomb shelter. The entrance is disguised as a boulder held in place by a winch." I left the interrogation room feeling as if I had just climbed that very cliff. We had uncovered the motive and the person who carried out the technical work. But we still needed the killer and the weapon. We needed evidence to prevent Stone from escaping. I contacted the department. "Prepare the LVMPD special unit. We are going to Level Canyon Quarry. Complete isolation is required. We are going after Arthur Stone." That night, the wind in Las Vegas was particularly cold, despite the heat of the day. I knew that the real climax was yet to come, and it would be at the height where the truth about Robert Greene had been forever hidden within the walls of the canyon. I didn't believe in coincidence, especially when it came to big money, toxic waste, and a monumental installation of a dead body. Arthur Stone. The name evoked a sense of something old, rotten, but hidden behind a mask of respectability. Our plan was simple. I would pressure Thompson using his fear and the evidence, while Ramirez prepared a raid team for Level Canyon Quarry. Time was of the essence. Stone, as a former business owner, might have had the means to quickly cover his tracks, especially if he had left a plan for concealing evidence in his surveillance room, as Thompson had said. I returned to Thompson. He sat nervously rubbing his calloused fingers, his eyes red from lack of sleep and fear. I threw the photo of the rope from his garage on the table, the same rope that had been used to secure Robert's body. "This rope, Jacob, isn't just evidence of complicity. It's evidence that you knew it was an accident," I raised my voice. "Those who simply dump a body use whatever means are at hand. Those who create a monument use professional equipment. You helped him create a message, and now you're going to pay for his wrath." I moved on to Robert's photos. Photos of the communications tower, ventilation pipes leading into the quarry. "Robert Greene," I said, touching the photo carefully. He, like you, was a professional. He knew what he was looking at. He photographed evidence of illegal toxic waste disposal. He was a threat to the big money Stone was making for his services. I explained the legal implications to him. Stone owned the quarry. He had access to the Lovell Canyon quarry tunnels. You are his tool. But tools break, Jacob. He'll throw you under the bus. He already killed a witness who just took a photo. What's to stop him from disposing of you to keep you quiet? Thompson began to tremble. His eyes darted around. He told me. He said if I talked, they'd find me on the cliff, but without the rope. It was an ultimatum. Stone didn't just want to intimidate strangers. He wanted to keep his enforcers in fear. "Do you want to hang next to Robert?" I asked, cold as the canyon rock. "Then keep quiet. If you want to live, give me proof." Thompson finally broke. He realized that the price of his silence was his own life. He began to talk about Stone. Arthur Stone. He went bankrupt, but retained access to the tunnels. He used Lovell Canyon Quarry as a hidden dumping ground for toxic industrial waste. The tower was his eye for coordinating truck shipments under cover of night. It was a big operation. When Robert photographed the ventilation pipes going deep into the quarry, Stone realized it was the end, Thompson continued. He gave the order to take him out, but he killed him himself in a fit of rage. Thompson gave me the coordinates of a hidden surveillance room in the quarry where Stone had left a blueprint for concealing the evidence. "It's behind an old cement wall," he clarified. "There are monitors, radio equipment, and encrypted video recordings, and his tools are there." These coordinates were key evidence in obtaining a full-fledged raid warrant. Thompson, though an accomplice, had just become our Trojan horse. We loaded him into the car and took him to the detention center. He was captured and taken out of the game. But his words stuck in my mind. He's not just a killer, detective. He wanted his message to be carved into the rock. He wanted every climber to know, this is the price of curiosity. I looked at my watch. 11 p.m. Night in the Nevada desert. Our capture team, led by Ramirez, was already on its way to Lovell Canyon Quarry. We were following the hammer that killed Robert Greene and the video recordings that would solve the crime. The LVMPD special unit moved silently, like shadows in the dark. At 2 o'clock in the morning, we arrived at Lovell Canyon Quarry. The moon hanging over the canyon barely illuminated the ruined structures, which only intensified the feeling that we had entered a world long abandoned by humans. Robert Greene's death was not just a crime. It was a hidden illegal activity protected by the silence of the desert. We found an old explosive bunker on the east wall, just as Thompson had described. Behind it, disguised as a boulder, was the entrance to a hidden surveillance room. It was held in place by a rusty winch, and Ramirez, using professional tools, carefully pulled the boulder away so as not to cause a collapse. Inside, it smelled of mold, dust, and metal. It was a real command center, monitors, radio equipment, and even a ventilation system identical to the pipes Robert Greene had photographed. Stone didn't just work here, he lived here. "Search the whole place," I ordered. "Look for a hard drive and the murder weapon." The room was organized with a meticulous precision that contrasted with the chaos of the quarry. On a table littered with maps and rough calculations, we found a hard drive labeled Archive, Tox, Clear. These were encrypted video files containing evidence of illegal disposal of toxic waste. While the forensic team was dismantling the equipment, Ramirez cleared out a small cabinet in the corner, which turned out to be an old first aid kit. Inside, carefully wrapped in a dirty rag, lay a climbing hammer, heavy, with a serrated metal head. It was a tool used to drive hooks into rock, but its shape and weight were perfect for the blunt force trauma to the head that killed Robert. There were dried, dark marks on the hammer. Even in the light of the flashlight, it was clear. It was blood. "We found it, John," Ramirez whispered, handing me the hammer in an evidence bag. "This is the murder weapon." At that moment, my headset radio crackled. "Detective McLean, I've got a man. Looks like our boss. He was hiding under some debris on the upper platform. He's moving toward the ridge." We knew that Stone, the former owner of the business who had gone bankrupt but retained access to the tunnels, was nearby. He was waiting. He had probably seen us arrive. I ran out of the control room, throwing the hammer and disc to the forensic team. I had only my cell phone in my hand. I had to stop him now before he escaped into the maze of tunnels he knew like the back of his hand. I saw Arthur Stone. A stocky man with a graying beard, he was running toward the highest point of the quarry, where the rock face dropped off sharply. He intended to descend via a complex route known only to him, using his professional climbing skills. I stopped to catch my breath and shouted at the top of my lungs, "Stone, this is the LVMPD. Stop! We found your surveillance room. We have the hard drive with all your recordings and the hammer. We're going to recover the data, the toxic waste, the coordinates, everything." I used the words recover and everything as a threat, even though I knew recovery would take time. Stone stopped. His silhouette stood out against the Nevada night sky. He looked back at the quarry, at the tunnels, at the place he had turned into a source of income and a place of murder. The realization that his business and his freedom had been destroyed made him shudder. He made one last, desperate dash for the rocky ridge. I knew he wouldn't back down. He led us straight to the final act. The morning that dawned over Lovell Canyon was a dirty orange, emphasizing the drama of the decisive confrontation. Arthur Stone, an experienced rescue climber, knew what he was doing. He scrambled onto the rocky ridge, narrow and sharp as a knife's edge, from where he intended to descend via a complex route known only to him. I knew that behind his professional skills lay the madness of an owner who was used to controlling the territory and who had just lost everything: his business, money from illegal toxic waste disposal, and false immunity. Ramirez, 2 Special Forces agents, and I began to pursue him along the cliff. Our boots slipped on the loose rock, but the adrenaline drowned out our fear of heights. Stone's every move was deliberate but tense. He wasn't running, he was climbing furiously. "We have to surround him," Ramirez croaked into his radio. "He's looking for the old tunnel. Don't let him get to the tunnels." Stone reached the point where the ridge dropped off over the deepest part of the quarry, where, according to his old plans, the main entrances to the waste tunnels were hidden. He took a small charge out of his backpack, which he probably used for marking or clearing routes. "Don't come any closer," his voice rang out, breaking the morning silence. "I'll bring this rock down. You won't find anything, Detective. You'll never prove that I dumped the trash. And the hammer, I found the hammer on the mountain. It wasn't mine." It was a lie, desperate and transparent. We knew Robert Greene's DNA was on the hammer, although we didn't have laboratory confirmation yet. But I had to act based on his psychological state. "You know this is the end, Stone." I took another step, finding support between 2 rock ledges. "The rope in Thompson's garage is identical. We already have the video recordings from your hard drive. Your accomplice is talking. You turned a man's death into a crucifixion, Stone, to scare tourists. Intimidate them because you were afraid someone else would photograph your communications tower and pipes." My words hit home. His hand, which was holding the charge, trembled. I saw not fear in his eyes, but destroyed pride. He was a failed owner who had turned into a fanatical killer guarding his illegal empire. "Robert Greene just took a photo," I shouted, using his anger against him. "You killed him because he was curious. You nailed him to the rock to send a message, but the message was received. We found him." Stone was distracted. He looked down at the spot where his victim had once hung. That was enough. Ramirez, who had come in from the right flank using a fast climbing technique recently developed for mountain operations, quickly secured the safety hook. The second agent, moving from below, began to climb up to cut off Stone's line of retreat. It was a crucial test. We used professional coordination to counter his professional confidence. Ramirez reached Stone in one swift move, neutralizing him before he could activate the charge. Stone collapsed on the rocks, his body stiff with rage, but his will broken. We had captured the criminal. He lay face down in the dust that concealed his toxic secrets. Later, recovered video files from the hard drive confirmed everything. There were coordination records of the arrival of trucks with toxic waste, and most importantly, a video clip, accidentally filmed by Stone while he was preparing the hammer, where he, in a state of rage, yelled at Robert and then ordering Thompson to secure the body to intimidate anyone who tried to approach his price of silence. Arthur Stone was a real criminal. He used the cliff as a billboard for his criminal intimidation. When we brought Arthur Stone out of the canyon, he was no longer the proud figure who had hung on the ridge. His body was exhausted, but his eyes remained cold and empty, like the windows of an abandoned quarry. He showed no remorse, only the shattered pride of an owner whose perfect criminal plan had been ruined by the innocent curiosity of a climber. The investigation was over quickly. Thompson, our accomplice, provided key testimony, which, together with the hard drive and the climbing hammer, on which laboratory analysis confirmed Robert Greene's DNA, created an irrefutable picture. The motive for the crucifixion turned out to be not ritualistic or insane, but a rational criminal act of intimidation. Stone, using his professional skills as a mountain rescuer, wanted to create an unbreakable, visible symbol for other climbers. "Don't come near my secrets." He turned death into a billboard with a warning. Arthur Stone was convicted of first-degree murder of Robert Greene and illegal disposal of toxic waste. In court, he behaved arrogantly, claiming that he was defending the law of the canyon and the right to private use of his territory. But the court saw only greed, rage, and cold-blooded calculation. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Jacob Thompson, who confessed to the technical disposal of the body, received a significantly shorter sentence for his complicity in exchange for his help in exposing Stone's illegal scheme and toxic waste. Robert Greene's family got closure. His sister Annie, who had waited 2 years for answers, finally learned the truth, as horrific as it was. We returned her brother's personal belongings, including the damaged camera that became a weapon of justice. After a high-profile trial, Lovell Canyon Quarry underwent extensive remediation. The toxic waste was removed, and the tunnels Stone used as hideouts were permanently sealed to protect the canyon's ecology. The communications tower was dismantled. I often return to this case in my thoughts. It served as a reminder that the beauty of wild places, the majestic silence of the canyon, can be the perfect cover for the darkest crimes. Stone thought he was untouchable, but he forgot that even at a height of 60 meters on a cliff, traces remain: a micro-trace of mineral, a mark of rage on a hammer, and a frame on a memory card. Robert Greene was looking for a new route and a clean cliff, but instead he found the hidden price of silence. His story became as high as the cliff on which he was found. It is a reminder to all who travel in wild places. The price of innocent curiosity can be deadly when you stumble upon someone else's carefully hidden secrets. The canyon was clean again, but that eerie silhouette hanging over the abyss remained forever in the memory of the rangers and LVMPD detectives as a message that could not be ignored.